What happens when a voice carries more than just sound? What happens when a song holds hunger, hope, and years of silent sacrifice? Under the blinding lights of a world-famous stage, a Filipino teen stood smaller than the moment before him. The stage was vast. The silence was heavy. Every seat in the room carried expectation. Some carried doubt. Some carried boredom. Very few carried belief. This was not supposed to be a turning point. It was meant to be just another audition. Eli Mendoza had walked a long way to reach this moment, though his journey did not begin with cameras or applause. It began in narrow streets where dreams were whispered instead of spoken. It began in mornings that came too early and nights that ended too late. His life had been shaped by waiting, by watching others move ahead, by learning to hope quietly. Behind the stage, unseen by the world, stood a mother who had learned how to be strong without being loud. Maria Mendoza had carried dreams she never claimed as her own. Every sacrifice she made was stitched into Eli's future. Every tired step had been taken so her son could walk further than she ever did. The audience did not know this. The judges did not know this. Simon Cowell certainly did not expect it. To him, this was another face, another name, another moment that would pass. He had heard thousands of voices. He had watched countless dreams rise and fall in minutes. Very little moved him anymore. But something was different in the air. Eli stood still, his hands calm, his eyes focused, his heart loud. He was not trying to impress. He was not trying to prove anything. He was simply standing at the edge of a life he had imagined for years, wondering if the world would finally listen. The question was not whether he could sing. The real question was whether pain, hope, and courage could travel through a single voice. Could one song stop time? Could it freeze a man who had seen it all? Eli Mendoza had learned early how to stay quiet in a loud world. Not because he had nothing to say, but because life had taught him to listen first. He grew up in a small home where space was limited and dreams had to be shared carefully. Mornings began before the sun. Nights ended when tiredness finally won. Eli learned to move softly, to help without being asked, to understand when silence mattered more than words. He was not the kind of boy who demanded attention. He waited for it. And most of the time, it never came. At school, Eli blended into the background. He sat near windows, watching clouds drift while lessons passed by. His notebooks were neat, not because he was perfect, but because order gave him comfort. When noise became too much, he escaped into melodies playing only in his head. Music was his secret place. A place where fear loosened its grip. He sang when no one was watching. In corners of the house. In quiet streets. In moments stolen between responsibilities. Singing was never about being heard. It was about breathing freely for a few minutes. It was the one time he felt bigger than his worries. Eli carried small struggles that most people never noticed. Worn shoes that lasted longer than they should. Meals that were sometimes simple, sometimes skipped. The quiet pressure of wanting to help his mother without knowing how. Each struggle added weight, but also strength. Emotionally, he lived between hope and doubt. Some days, he believed fully in the future he imagined. Other days, the future felt too far away to touch. Still, he kept going. Still, he practiced. Still, he believed that effort meant something, that he respected his mother deeply, though he rarely showed it with words. His love was in actions. In patience. In choosing responsibility over comfort. Every note he practiced carried a silent promise, to make her sacrifices mean something. Now, standing on the edge of a moment larger than himself, Eli felt everything at once. For Eli Mendoza, the hardest battles were never visible. They lived quietly inside him, growing heavier with time. The central problem was not money, though money was always missing. It was not opportunity, though opportunities felt distant. The true conflict was the fear that his voice might never matter beyond the walls that had heard it in secret. Eli carried the loneliness of someone who dreamed differently from the world around him. While others spoke about safe paths and practical futures, he carried a dream that felt fragile, almost irresponsible. Singing did not promise stability. It did not guarantee security. And that made him feel guilty. Guilt followed him closely. Every time he sang, he wondered if he was being selfish. His mother worked through exhaustion, her hands rough from years of effort. She never complained. She never asked for anything. And yet, Eli feared that his dream asked too much of her patience and belief. There were nights when he stood awake, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood settling into sleep. In those moments, doubt crept in. He questioned whether hope was just another word for delay. Whether talent without resources was enough. Whether faith alone could carry him forward. Regret formed quietly, not for what he had done, but for what he feared he might never become. He regretted the confidence he lacked. The chances he did not know how to create. The words he never said to explain how deeply music lived inside him. Loneliness wrapped itself around him in subtle ways. He practiced alone. He worried alone. He imagined success alone. There was no crowd cheering him on. No certainty waiting at the end. Only the steady pressure of time moving forward. The moment he stepped onto the stage, all of this came with him. Every unspoken doubt. Every missed chance. Every silent question about worth and direction. The stage did not erase his fears, it magnified them. Yet, within this conflict, something else existed. A quiet refusal to give up. A belief that pain could become purpose. That loneliness could turn into connection. This audition was not just a performance. It was a confrontation. With fear. With guilt. With the possibility of loss, or transformation. Everything he had carried inside now waited to be released through a single song. The moment did not arrive loudly. It arrived softly, almost unnoticed. As Eli stood on the stage, something shifted inside him. The fear that had followed him for years did not disappear, but it stopped leading. For the first time, he understood that this was not about approval. It was about release. He realized that his voice did not belong to doubt anymore. It belonged to truth. When the music began, the world seemed to narrow. The bright lights faded into distance. The crowd blurred into stillness. What remained was memory. Every early morning. Every quiet sacrifice. Every moment his mother chose strength over rest. The first notes carried weight. Not perfection, but honesty. The sound filled the room slowly, like a tide that did not rush. It held pain without bitterness. Hope without arrogance. Each note felt lived in, shaped by experience rather than training. The air changed. People leaned forward without realizing why. Then came the shift. Eli stopped trying to sing well. He started singing real. In that instant, the fear of failure lost its power. He was no longer a boy asking to be seen. He was a story unfolding. A voice carrying places, faces, and years that had never been spoken aloud. The judges felt it. The audience felt it. Simon felt it most of all. A man who had built his life on hearing voices suddenly found himself listening differently. Not for technique. Not for control. But for meaning. His expression stilled. His posture froze. Time slowed around him. This was unexpected. Unplanned. Unavoidable. Eli realized something profound as the song continued. Whether this moment changed his future or not, it had already changed him. He was no longer hiding. He was no longer waiting. He was standing fully inside his truth. The song became more than sound. It became a turning point. A realization settled deep within him, his story mattered. His pain had purpose. His voice was enough, just as it was. When the final note faded, the silence that followed was not empty. It was full. Full of understanding. Full of respect. Full of a future that had just shifted its direction forever. Moments do not just change a future. They change how a person sees themselves. Eli Mendoza walked onto that stage believing this was a chance. He walked away understanding it was a message. A reminder that voices shaped by struggle carry a depth no training can teach. That pain, when carried with patience, can become something powerful. The world often measures worth by confidence, volume, and speed. But Eli's journey proved something quieter. That strength can be soft. That courage can tremble. That hope does not need to shout to be real. He did not succeed because everything was easy. He succeeded because nothing was. Every early morning, every unspoken worry, every moment of doubt had shaped the sound that finally reached the world. His voice carried the truth that many people live but rarely express, that dreams survive in silence long before they are celebrated in light. For Maria Mendoza, the lesson was just as deep. Sacrifice does not disappear. Love does not vanish into effort. Every step taken for someone else finds its way back, often in forms more beautiful than imagined. Her quiet strength had echoed through her son's courage. And for those watching, the takeaway lingered long after the lights dimmed. Sometimes, the thing you believe is holding you back is the very thing that will carry you forward. The fear, the loneliness, the doubt, they are not signs to stop. They are proof that something meaningful is growing. Not every dream reaches a stage like this. But every dream deserves belief. Eli's story is not about fame. It is about permission. Permission to believe that where you come from does not limit where you can go. Permission to trust that your story, no matter how small it feels, has value. In the end, the most powerful change was not in the room. It was inside a boy who finally understood his voice mattered. And that is the quiet truth. When you stop hiding who you are, the world listens.